In a previous video, we looked at the premium Titleist golf ball range, went through the brand new Titleist golf ball fitting app that pairs up with TrackMan to help give you a prediction and give you some information on what will be the best golf ball to suit your game. And in today's video, we're going to look at the rest of the Titleist golf ball range. So the app focuses on the premium golf balls, ProV1, ProV1X, ProV1X Left Dash, and the AVX. Today we're going to go to the other golf balls in the range. So we've got the TourSoft, we've got the Velocity, and we've got the TrueFeel. Now, Titleist make lots of different golf balls to try and satisfy lots of different golfers. The premium golf ball, as the name suggests, is designed to be the best performing ball. So it's no stones left unturned. Titleist are trying to make the best golf ball that they can to help golfers shoot their best scores. Now, obviously that comes at a price. So with these other three golf balls, what Titleist is trying to do there is make a best-in-class golf ball that still gives great performance, but at a slightly lower price point, because we're accepting everyone doesn't want to pay £10 plus for a sleeve of golf balls. So what we're going to do today is test out those three golf balls. Now, we're going to use the same process we did when we used the ball fitting app. Unfortunately, the app won't make any recommendations on these non-premium balls, but we're going to use the way that the app came to the conclusion that ProV1 was the best ball for me, and we're going to test the other three balls against the ProV1. So we'll collect a little bit of baseline data. First with a ProV, which is the ball that I was fitted for, suits my game. It's the ball I've played with for quite a long time. We'll hit some half wedge shots, full pitching wedges, 7-irons and drivers, and we'll just look at some data from the TrackMan, see how they differ. What we'll try to do, we're going to try and step away a little bit from the technical side of like why these balls are different, and I'll just give you my opinion on how they feel potentially off the club face compared to a ProV1, but really we'll rely on the data there. What do they do differently? Are they flying further? Are they spinning more? Are they spinning less? Are they going higher or lower? And we might just be able to come to some conclusions there that for a certain golfer who doesn't want to pay into that premium golf ball range, which one of these balls might give you the best option for your game. So we'll start just collecting a little bit of data from the ProV1. I think, as we said, we're going to go in exactly the same way we did last time. We'll start from the half wedge shot up. So let's collect a little bit of data. We'll start with the ProV, work through the other three, see what differences we can find. Okay, so as we did when we went through the ball fitting process, we're going to start with the half wedge shot. So I've just picked out my 60-degree wedge here. We've got the ProV1 golf ball to start with. I'm going to hit maybe a 30 to 40 yard shot. So it's a partial speed shot. It's not a full power hit in any way. I've loaded up some TrackMan data tiles on the right. We've got the carry and the total number, so we can look at how far the ball's flying and then how quickly it's stopping, which would probably be a priority with this type of shot. We've got launch angle, height, and the landing angle. So that's giving us a picture of the trajectory the ball's flying on. And we've then got the spin rate to see how much backspin is being generated when I make my contact. So I'll hit 3 shots here with the ProV1. The aim here is going to be, like I said, just a 30 to 40 yard shot. So nothing too crazy. Hit that one a little bit heavy. But yeah, 35 yards carry. 7,000 RPM spin, 30-degree launch angle. Kind of exactly what I pictured I was trying to do, really. So we'll go a couple more of those. Again, launch angle, they're almost identical in the early 30s. Spin rate in the 7,000s, 37 yards carry. Really all we're doing here is we're using this data from the ProV1 just to form a baseline. I think, as I said last time, the app did the hard work for us here, and what the app was looking at was landing angle and spin rate. So we've got those two pieces here, land angle and spin rate on the screen. We're just going to form a baseline here of what my ProV1 does. We know this ball fits me. We'll then compare it to the other three. So it just gives us a bit of a baseline. So one more of those, same kind of idea. Yeah, be pretty happy with all three of those. Maybe strike that one a tiny bit lower on the face. But again, 40 yards carry, 30 degrees launch, 7,800 spin. Be pretty comfortable with all of those. So let me just pop over here to the TrackMan. What I'm going to do now is we're going to tag this. So we're going to move into the TrueFeel. Excuse me, into the TourSoft first. Okay. So exactly the same intent. Let's get the ProV1 out of the way. Just double check that is the TourSoft. Yep, that is. So the aim here is to hit the same golf shot. I'm going to try and make the same swing. We can see what the golf ball does differently. So if I guess numbers to remember there might be landing angle 38, spin 7,800, carried 40 yards, run out to 44. You know, this type of shot will be a shot we're trying to stop by a pin. I mean, instantly you can see it's hit higher on the screen. yeah, I mean, launch angle quite a bit higher. The ball's rolled out nearly 6 yards now as opposed to 4. 5,000 RPM a spin. So you can see here we're getting a lot less backspin straight away for kind of the same shot. Yeah, I mean, it's noticeable there straight away, isn't it, how much higher that's hitting. 35-degree launch, 6,000 spin, 5 yards of run out again. So a little bit more run out than we were experiencing with the ProV. Okay, let's go one more there. Yeah, I mean, across, nearly missed the top of the screen there. 38 degrees launch, low spin, more run out. So much higher launch, but ball running out more because we've got much less backspin on it. Okay, really interesting. Right, let's pop that back there. Let's move into velocity. Okay. Now, as the name suggests, velocity, you would imagine, is a ball that's designed to go quite a long way. Again, we're going to try and make the same swing, 30 to 40 yard pitch. See what we get there. Yeah, I mean, look how high that's hit on the screen. Launch angle up in nearly 38 there. Wow. Okay, yeah, spin a little bit low again. 6,000. Yeah, again, 39 degrees launch angle. You know, and this is me trying to play exactly the same golf shot. Trying to pitch it 35 to 40. You know, it's remarkable, really. ProV1 there was launching at just over 30 degrees, spinning up in the 7,000s. You can see here how we're losing that spin, and the ball now is running out 6 yards here as opposed to 4. That might not sound like a lot, but you know, 4 yards from a pin is 12 feet. 6 yards from a pin is 18 feet. Everyone's way more likely to hold a 12-foot putt than a 16-foot putt. Excuse me, an 18-foot putt. So being able to hit this pitch just short of a par 5 and able to knock it in a little bit closer, that's probably where the benefits coming in the ProV1. So yeah, really interesting to actually sort of see that measured on the TrackMan there, I guess. A little bit lower launch, but again, similar kind of shot, isn't it? Still much higher than the ProV1, still quite low on spin. Okay, that's 2 down. Let's just move back into the TrackMan there. Just tag this so we can separate them all out in a second. We'll measure off the true feel. Okay. Right. Exactly the same test. 3 shots, and then we'll go and have a look at the data, see what we can learn from it. Well, slightly lower launch there, interestingly, so much more closer to my ProV1 window there. Excuse me, carried a little bit further. Spin a little bit down. So maybe hit that a little bit harder. Maybe deliver a little bit less loft, which is why it's carried further. Okay. Definitely felt like I hit that one a bit harder. No, 40, still pretty good. 35 degrees launch, 6,500 spin, running out 4.5 yards. So closer to that ProV1 number, isn't it? Okay, let's go one more. Pull it a smidge onto the screen there, which is why the launch angle will be down. Club face was a tiny bit shut. Okay, well, we've got 3 shots with each of the balls in the bag there. Let's pop back over to TrackMan. We'll load up some data screens and we'll just look through what the differences in the numbers are, maybe think about how that might start to affect our performance when we're on the course. Okay, so first thing we'll look at there is just this little dispersion chart. So the 4 different colours there obviously indicate the 4 golf balls. Now, no test like this, particularly conducted by a human, particularly when that human's me, is going to be perfect because I've still got to execute the shot the same. But I think what we can see there is that, you know, we've got the white, the pink, the orange and the blue there. They're the 4 different golf balls. You can see that pretty much they're going to, you know, I'm trying to hit the same golf shot. There's obviously a little bit of variety here just in my strike and in stuff like that. But in terms of how far they carry there, you know, I can carry them all 40 yards, so that's not really an issue. Now, the challenge here, I guess, is that what we're trying to do on a 40-yard shot is we're trying to stop the ball close to a flag. So if we pop up the right-hand side of the screen here, you can see we've got the 4 golf balls. So the bottom one was the bog standard set with the ProV1. Carried 37 yards with the TourSoft, 36.6 with the Velocity, 36.3 with the TrueFeel, tiny bit longer. That's just human error, as I said, just me hitting them a little bit harder. I think the interesting bit here is the difference potentially between the carry and the total. So 37.5, 40.5, 4 yards here, getting up towards 5 yards here, again sort of 5 yards here, and again just 4.5 yards here with the TrueFeel. Now I think, like I said earlier, a yard doesn't sound like a lot, but 3 feet further away from the hole on every pitch I hit from 40 yards, I'm just going to make less up and downs. You know, you will hole less 10-foot putts than you do 7-foot putts, or 15-foot putts than you do 12-foot putts, and so on. That's just the nature of it. And ultimately there, you know, the reason that those numbers are so different are the spin rates. We can see here the ProV1's got the highest spin rate here. Lowest launch, highest spinning golf ball. One of the things you'll notice with really good players when they hit these 30 to 40 yard pitches, unless they're trying to hit maybe a specialist shot up over a bunker, will actually be how low the golf ball flies. So I think 7,300 spin there. You can see definitely in the velocity quite low, down in the low 5,000. So I'm sort of losing nearly, you know, well, 2,000 RPM here and nearly 2,000 here with the TourSoft. The TrueFeel, interestingly, if we look at the numbers, probably actually the closest to what I've seen in the ProV1. Only 4.5 yards difference here in the carry and the total. Launch angle 33 playing 31, so pretty close. Spin at 6,600 versus 7,300. So probably I'd say initially there, my feeling would be, if I didn't want to play ProV1 off of that, if I was just prioritising my short game shots, probably TrueFeel there is going to be the closest match, because it's actually performing in terms of its launch angle, its spin rate, closer to my ProV1, which is the bottom one here, than either the TourSoft or Velocity, where I'm losing all my spin and getting way higher launch angle. So, okay, let's move into the pitching wedge and we'll see what results we start to get there. Okay, so that's the partial distance half wedge is done. Pretty interesting, I thought there, that actually the TrueFeel would be the one that performs closest to the ProV1. So it's actually the cheapest ball in the Titleist range there. And in terms of performance for me, gave me the closest performance into my ProV1 golf ball. Sort of feel and stuff, they all felt pretty good there. Probably the big takeaway I'd say on those would be that they feel, they're not going to describe it being more rubbery. Now that feel is one of those very personal things. It feels like that to me, and I will either prefer that or not. I've played the ProV1 for 10 years probably, so I'm very used to how that feels, and they feel quite different. Not good or bad, just different, and probably there that would be something, if you've played a certain type of golf or moved to another one, you're going to have recognised that yourself, that feel part does play a part on it. I think that's where looking at the TrackMan data is quite handy, because we saw there, didn't we, that on that 30 to 40 yard wedge shot, where I can expect to have a relative amount of control, there was a performance change from one ball to the other. I would definitely prioritise the ProV1 there, because I want to be able to pitch this 40 and stop it as close to 40 yards as I can. So on those pitches, I can get it near to pins. And Titleist's sort of golf ball fitting ethos would be that you fit from the green back to the tee. You'll see the biggest performance changes with the shortest shot. So we're going to start moving up the bag now. We've got pitching wedge here. Same thing as before. I'm going to start with the ProV1. We'll hit 3 just to get a baseline. Exactly the same numbers we're going to look at. We'll just hit 3. Then we'll go in and get some data from the other 3 balls as well. So little toey one to start with there. Yeah, hit that quite poorly, that one. Okay. Pretty similar. Should be a fairly similar outcome, I'd have thought. Yeah. 25 degrees launch, somewhere in the 7,000 spin. I think that's almost identical to what we saw on the last shot there. Yeah, pretty similar. Okay, let's get one more. As I say, this is just a ProV1, just to form that baseline again. That's a better strike. Launch angle again, almost identical, 25. Spin rate in the late 7,000s, about what I'd expect there for a good wedge, actually, in the early 120s carry. Okay, perfect. Right, so again, we're going to use it as our baseline. Let me pop back in here to the TrackMan. We'll go in the same sequence again. So I'm going to take that away. We're going to go back into the TourSoft, which is this one here, I think. Yep, that's it. So again, if we think numbers I would probably be paying attention to, there'd be launch angle, 24 degrees, land angle, 50 degrees, spin rate, nearly 8,000. Let's see if we can keep them, see if they stay in a very similar range. Again, yeah, just pointing this out, I guess. 125.5 carry, 128.5 stopping it. So my ball's pitched there at 125 and it stopped within 3 yards, 9 feet of the pin. So if I've pitched that right by the hole, I've now got a 9-foot birdie putt. I think that's what the launch, land and spin rate are all trying to help combine. And if that number starts to go up, for me, that's less control. I now can't pitch balls near to the flag. And if I was playing to a front pin in the summer, firm conditions, much harder for me now to hit the ball close to the hole. So yeah, right. Let's get 3 TourSofts in there, see what these give us. See if I can try and make the same swing. Felt pretty good, launch angle really similar. Spin rate actually gone up, interestingly. Be interesting to see if that's a theme that carried on. Didn't feel like I struck that particularly differently, if I'm honest. So I wouldn't necessarily say much has changed there. You know, I don't think I've done a huge amount different, but yeah, that's a nice swing, I think. Hair left, perhaps. Yeah, spinning a lot this ball, isn't it? Interesting. Actually decreasing there my carry and my total number, which is quite interesting. Under 2 yards now, so I've just got it 3 feet, excuse me, closer to the pin. Might be a little bit out to the right, that one. 9,000 spin, wow. I mean, really interesting there, isn't it? We can see almost identical launch angle to we saw with the last one. Spin rate's definitely gone up there with that ball, which I wouldn't have necessarily expected, I don't think. Oh, is that one there? Okay, right, let's move into the next one, which is going to be velocity. Let's get rid of that there, get that there. Right. Okay, so same thing again with velocity there. Interesting, I guess, looking at that, you can see there the TourSoft's not gone any further. I carried my best ProV1 125 and I've hit the TourSoft there 124. So it's not, the golf ball's not longer. I'm not going to hit it further. Certainly not with a pitching wedge, so, which I guess would never be the goal anyway, but if you're out there thinking, oh, can I find a ball where I can hit my clubs a bit further, doesn't seem to be the case so far. Again, super similar launch angle. Very similar spin rate. Yeah, I mean, almost identical numbers, aren't they? 24 launch, 50 landing angle, 8.5 spin, carried 124, stopped at 126. Very, very similar. Slightly higher launch there. Spin rate still in the 8,000s, 120 for 122. So, again, stopping it within 6 feet. Let's go one more there. Don't hate that. Yeah, super consistent, aren't they? This has been around 25 with every golf ball, so we haven't really seen much change there. Spin rate again is actually a little bit higher than the ProV1, which is interesting. Carry, again, stopping it within a couple of yards, so certainly wouldn't look at that as an issue. Okay, let's go last one. Let's go back into the surprise package so far. Let's get the true feel back in the game. Like I said, for me, this is the one that performed closest to the ProV1 when it was with the half wedge shot. So it'll be interesting to see how this comes out now. Let's get 3 of these and then we'll have a little recap. Not the greatest strike, but it's interesting there again. Launch angle, I think I'm going to launch a wedge at 25 degrees. If we've learned anything today, it should be that. Less than 3 yards run out, landing angle 50, spin of around 8,000, almost identical to the ProV1 again. Really interesting, that. Okay, let's go. That was a nice strike. Yep, 25 launch, 123 for 125, 50 degree land, 8,300 spin. Yeah, really interesting. Okay, one more. One more, and then we'll have a little recap of this data before we move into a mid-iron. Yeah, spin down a little bit. actually feel like I hit that a little bit fat, a little bit tiny bit heavy, if I'm honest. Only a fraction. But again, if your worst shot there, 121 stops within 10 feet, let's say, of where it's pitched, I think for a wedge shot, that's pretty decent. Okay, let's get back into the TrackMan. We'll get some data up. We'll have a little look at what's changed between the three balls there. Okay, so we'll start with the same screen we started with last time. We can see here clearly, this one I've obviously not hit quite as well as the others. That was that little, that was the first one actually with the ProV1, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay, so maybe first full swing of the day. Potentially that might be part of that. But ultimately there, I think we can see amongst the others, we've got a ProV1 here. We've got a Velocity here in the red. We've got a TourSoft here in the blue. In the greeny blue. And then in the other blue here, we've got the final one, the Truefield. So pretty much that not one of those golf balls is going to go further than the other in reality for me. As we said, the key then becomes, I think, that the difference between the carry and the total. So again, the goal with a wedge shot is to pitch the ball and have it stopped by the pin. So I've got here, let's use easy round numbers, 118 and 121 and a half. So I've got 3.5 yards. Let's call that 10 feet of run out. Ultimately here, 121 to 123, 4 yards. So I'm up at 12 feet rather than 10, couple of feet. I mean, I will hole putts, more putts from 10 feet than 12, but it's not a million miles away in reality. I think same in velocity, actually only a couple of yards there, which is interesting. And then back again in the Truefield, back into that sort of 3 yard range. So pretty consistent across the board there. I think we saw from the data as I was hitting, and I mentioned it, launch angle almost identical within a fraction of a degree. I think land angle there, slightly interesting. ProV1 clearly flies lower than the others, 78 feet versus these being up in the 80s. So probably an initial thought there might be, if you're someone who maybe hits the ball a little bit too low and would like to hit it higher, these three golf balls here, the Truefield, the Velocity and the TourSoft, are all going to fly high, certainly with the wedge, and we'll see if that trend continues when we move into a mid-iron in a minute. Certainly going to fly higher than the ProV1 does. And actually the spin rates are all ever so slightly higher for me than they were with the ProV as well. But, I would still think, okay, the difference there in the carry versus the total is pretty small across all three of them. It's sort of negligible. I think if I probably keep repeating that test, we might find that these numbers just get closer and closer together. It blurs the lines a bit harder to see the difference. So I'd still be leaning at the moment the fact that 30 to 40 yard pitch, the ProV1 gave me superior control. Okay, let's move into a 7 iron and we'll see what that gives us. Okay, so we've got the pitch shot and the full pitching wedge shots done. I think as we just said in the recap there, interesting to see that the gap in the performance was pretty small when we got into the full pitching wedge shot there. Certainly I think compared to the 30 to 40 yard pitch, spin rate in that 30 to 40 yard pitch way higher with the ProV1, which is going to result in more stopping power, able to get to tight front pins, let's say when I'm slightly short-sided or just short of a par 5 and 2. With the wedge there, kind of much of a muchness, and they were all doing a very similar job in terms of pitching at a distance and running out 2 to 3 yards. So pretty much all in the same kind of range. So moving into the 7 iron now, probably here we're starting to think a little bit more about the distance the ball's travelling in total. So definitely there will be a player out there who, rather than prioritising spin and performance around the green, just being able to get the ball nearer to the green in 2 shots rather than 3. So if you're a player who maybe on sort of mid-length to longer par 4s is struggling to get on the green in 2, let's say, if we can find a golf ball that went further and you can all of a sudden go to being on the edge of the green in 2 rather than 30 yards short in 2, that's probably going to be beneficial to your score. So that'll be interesting to see now we're changing into longer clubs, whether we see that in the performance. So again, we're starting on the ProV1. We'll hit 3 7 irons here. See if I can make some swings that are somewhat similar to each other. That is way out the toe to start with. Probably doesn't come as a surprise given. Okay. Pretty about 160 I'd expect this to fly. So for a toe hit, I've lost a couple of yards there. Might see launch angle and spinner a touch low where I've pulled it. Let's hit a couple more there. Have a little look. Yeah, better swing there. So you can see launch angle's just gone up a touch. Spin rate in a similar range. 160 again, about what I'd expect to get out of my carry. So again, probably worth thinking about these two numbers here. How far did it carry? Where did it stop? So if I'm playing to a front pin there, if pin's a couple of yards over a bunker, it's 160 to the pin. If I'm trying to pitch it 160, it's pitching pin high, running out a little bit, and I've got a 30-foot putt back from the centre of the green. So that'll be, again, worth considering, but it's only one of the factors we're going to think about. So a little bit thin, that's why launch angle will be down. Be interested to see if spin's gone up. Not a huge amount, but again, fairly similar in terms of its carry. 160 about, again, early 160s be my 7-iron number, running out about 10 yards. Launch angle, spin rate, pretty predictable. Okay, right, let's repeat exactly the same with our old friend, Mr. TourSoft. Let's see what he's given us. So, get the trusty ProV1 out the way. TourSoft, yeah. So, okay, so again, numbers to think about. How far did it go? 61. How quickly did it stop? 10 yards. 17-degree launch, late 5,000 spin. Let's see what we get here. Quite a low launch angle there. Okay, so I picked up a couple of yards in carry, maybe because I've launched it a little bit lower. Still stopped it within that 10-yard window. So the ball's not running out way more. Spin rate was similar, late 5,000, so no discernible difference there. That's a nice strike. Yeah. Spin rate up a little bit again. So again, 161. So initially, if we were going to ask the question here, is the TourSoft golf ball longer than the ProV1? The answer would be no. Not from what we're seeing here. Yep, those three things felt pretty good. Again, 161, 168, stopping it within that 10 yards, 17 launch, 6,000 spin. Okay, cool. Let's pop now. Just change that over on the TrackMan there. So we're going to go into velocity, which again, we would assume there, given the name, it's a golf ball designed to move quickly through the air. Implies power and distance, doesn't it, the name? So, right, so again, early 160s, stopping it within 10 yards, around late 5,000, early 6,000 spins here. Okay, let's see if I can get 3 good ones of these away. Hit that a little bit thin, tiny bit thin. Very straight though. Certainly find it, wouldn't you? Again, I think that's the third ball we've hit now. Not going to really carry any difference, I don't think. There's not going to be a massive change in. I'm not going to find a golf ball that goes 10 yards longer with my 7-iron. Stopping it here within a range that's pretty good. So I'm happy with that. Cool, I've hit that one really well. Be interesting to see. That could be a bit longer because I've absolutely mullered it. Yeah, right, we've got to be a bit careful there. That's gone further because I've absolutely hit it in the centre of the club face, probably for the first time today. So, yeah, that's the one where we all say, oh yeah, I definitely carry my 7-iron 170. It's like, yeah, I've done it once. Doesn't mean you do it every time. Still stopping within that 10-yard window. Launch angle and spin rate's fairly similar. You know, I wouldn't, as I say, I don't think that's the golf ball. I think that's I've happened to hit a really good shot. I might have just hit another pretty good one there, to be fair. Yeah, almost identical. So again, stopping within 10 yards of where it pitched. I mean, yeah, I know I've hit those two. I have hit those two really well, but the ball is called velocity. So maybe there is a little bit of golf ball helping me gain a couple of yards. Would I think that my best one with the ProV1 was carrying 161, 162? Is 6 yards really going to change my life for the trade-off with the short game? Probably not. But we'll come back to that in a second. Let's have a little look there then. Let's go true feel to finish up with. So exactly the same thing. I guess thinking about those last couple of shots I've just hit really well. With any fitting, golf ball, club, whatever it might be, there is obviously the human element. Like the club doesn't swing itself. We've got to swing it. We've got to put it on the golf ball. the better we do that, the better the shot's going to be anyway. Doesn't mean the equipment's not important and doesn't play a significant part in the overall package of your performance on the golf course, but I think ultimately, like, if you make a good swing, you're going to get the best outcome. That shouldn't come as a shock to any of us. So, right, 3 true feels. Felt nice. Yeah, good. Interesting there. Spin rate's dropping down a little bit, low 5,000s, and we're starting to get close to getting out the end of that 10-yard carry to run window. Which, you know, if that starts to get too big, that number, like I said, front pin, the best we can do now is hit it to 30, 40 feet, and we're sort of in 3-putt territory rather than being able to set up a birdie chance. So, I've got to say, this ball feels unbelievably soft off the club face. Yeah, again, some of the spin will be low there because I've pulled it, carried a hell of a long way, but again, we're starting to get into that position there where maybe the ball's just running out a little bit further than we want. It's easy to get allured, you know, pulled in by this number. I think, as I said, some of that is just because I've drawn it. You get a draw, generally the face is shut, the ball will spin less, it will go further. You know, it's why generally if you're going to miss a green, you'll miss long left or short right. It's quite hard to miss long right. Okay, let's hit one more, and we'll just go and look through some numbers. Don't hate that. Might be a smidge left again. Cool. Okay, right. That's 7-9 test done. Let's get into the TrackMan data, see what we can see. Okay, so first things first, again, we'll start with that dispersion chart. Interesting, really. I mean, definitely you can see there, I think the red ball here, we've got the true feel, the blue one's a velocity. I know this velocity here, I think, as I said, these two, I did hit them particularly well. The true feel is interesting. It definitely seems to have gone a little bit further. And I guess just to put that into some numbers, you know, my average carry of the ProV1 there's 160, 62 with the TourSoft, 165 with the velocity, and then 169 with the true feel. So it is quite a bit longer. I think I alluded to it a couple of times there. My concern with that might potentially be, though, that whilst it's longer, you know, my ProV1 there carries 160, stops before it gets to 170. My 7.9 here, whilst it carries 169, it's getting into the 180s, so it's pitching and it's running out. Now, that's off of an almost identical launch angle throughout the bag, an almost identical land angle throughout the bag. Spin rate's way down. So you can see under 5,000 there, 10% less spin than my ProV1 shot. Actually, interesting again for me, slightly more spin, I think, there with the TourSoft and velocity, which we actually saw that in one of the earlier tests as well, didn't we? But, you know, the app, if we remember when I did this previously, recommended that my land angle, my spin rate with the ProV1 with the 7.9 were perfect for greenside control, for being able to stop the ball by the flag. So definitely, I think I said it there during the little prelude to hitting those shots. If you're a golfer who's maybe looking at holes going, there's long par threes, I can't get there in one. There's sort of mid to longer par fours I'm struggling to get onto or around the green in two. Then maybe a true feel. If you could find a golf ball here that does go a little bit further, that might be worth something to you. So initially there we might be thinking true feel might be quite an interesting ball for you to think about. But yeah, it's interesting really. The numbers are quite similar, just the spin rates are the big difference in there. Okay, let's probably get into the one that everyone's going to think about. Let's go and hit some drivers, see what we get there. Okay, so on to the final piece of the puzzle. We're going to get the driver going. Same process as before. We'll hit 3 with my ProV1 just to establish a baseline. This is what I would see in my performance on the course at the moment. We'll then just hit the other 3 balls, TourSoft, velocity, true feel, see how they compare. Like as we said, this would be maybe an interesting test of, is there a ball that actually goes further? You know, can I maximise distance, which, as we said, for a certain player might be the priority. So let's see how this goes. Okay. That'd be pretty typical. Right edge of the fairway. 250 carry, 275 total, 12 degrees launch, 2,500 spin. That's not uncommon and not, you know, pretty much what I'm expecting to see, I would think, from these numbers. So I'll hit that quite heavily out the toe. I expect spin rate to be quite low, yeah. So because I've towed it there, the spin rate's come down, the carry's come down a little bit, but the total distance has actually kind of almost increased a touch because we're getting a bit more run. And I think that's what we need to be a little bit careful of a driver, that we don't become too reliant upon either carry or run. Because windy days, if the ball flight's too high and we're too much reliant upon carry, we're probably going to get affected by that, and we might not maximise how much it does run when the ground's firm. If the ball flight's too low and too much reliant upon, too reliant upon the ball bouncing, we're going to have to try and skip it around and past bunkers. Might be certain things we can't carry the ball over. Potentially in winter, ball's going to land and stop anyway, so we'll see quite a big discrepancy between our winter and our summer distance, which probably isn't ideal either. But let's get one more in there with the driver. Yeah, good. Again, pretty standard. 245, 250, 275. That for me, that's what a nice driver shot looks like. So be happy with that. Right. Let's flick that over then. So let's just tag this now as the TourSoft. And we'll get rid of the ProV there. Be interesting again to see if any one of these balls can find us some yardage. Let's see. Sort of funny strike there, a bit low and necky. Might be a bit of a cut with quite a lot of spin. Yeah. Do you know what? That's such a bad strike. Beauty of having TrackMan here is I can just go right click, delete, and just like that, it's like it never even happened. Take a mulligan on that one. So the idea there would be that obviously we're trying to compare data here, so we need the shots to be somewhat similar. I think a very low necky strike there is not going to give us really representative data to compare to the previous three, so we'll take it out of the equation. We're now using the other end of the club face. That will be the toe. Yeah, okay, so similar to one of the ones hit with the ProV there, wasn't it? It started a bit right, but carrying the mid 240s, 270, 12, 2.5, pretty similar numbers. I wouldn't think that's a completely, I've said this before, but anyone who's played golf with me will recognise that shot. That's pretty much my go-to. Down the right side of the fairway. Slightly higher launch. It's been pretty low. Yeah, a lot of distance in that. I mean, that's a perfect combination really of higher launch, lower spin. I think that's slightly higher on the club face. Maximise carry and total. I mean, that's just a really good drive. You know, if I hit that one, I'll be pretty pleased with myself. Let's go. That's, you know, that's the one you hit on the course that surprises you how far it's gone. You've got the perfect launch and spin conditions. And just sort of maximised out kind of everything you can really. It's going to be pretty standard, I think. Yeah, exactly the same as we saw before. 11 degrees, 245 carry, 270 total, in the 2000s for spin. Pretty standard stuff. Right, let's jump out of that. Let's get the velocity going, which is this kiddie hit. Just retrieved my couple of T-pegs from the front of the net there as well. So again, for ball called velocity, we'd assume this should be where it's time to shine is, because it certainly wasn't quite as good for me in terms of performance when we were hitting the soft, short pitches. There's that toey one that's going to be down the right again. Might be quite long though, because it's high launch, low spin. Yeah. Again, you'll see a theme, right semi-rough, just under 250 carry, just over 270 total. Like I said, that is pretty much what I'm banking on happening for the shots that I hit. Super familiar. Felt pretty well struck. Yeah, good. So total's gone up a little bit because spin rate was lower, but carry stayed the same, that mid 240s range. So not really changing there. You'd almost be thinking there a little bit, we're too reliant upon the extra distances come purely off of run. which means I've got to skirt it past bunkers and or have firm ground to actually see that. You know, I think it's only 5 yards anyway. I'm not sure how much we'd actually see that in the real world when you take into bouncing on slopes and stuff. But a little bit low on the face, probably a little bit cutty. Yeah, so a little bit low on the face. Spin rate's gone up. Carry stayed in a similar range, but total's come down because of the backspin on the ball. So, okay. Again, nothing in there that's jumping out, making me think I should be playing that ball. Final piece of the jigsaw. Surprise package so far, I guess, the True Feel. Still really impressed with how that worked with my the pitch shots we hit at the start. Let's get 3 of these going and then we'll come and see what's what. Felt like quite a nice swing. Yep. Standard numbers again, really, isn't it? Late 240s carry, early 270s total. 12-degree launch, mid 2000s spin, 90 feet in the air. I think when we look at these shots, the data is going to look very similar, and if I just hit more shots with each one, you'd imagine they'd just continue to get closer together. Good. Spin a little bit lower, so carry come down a touch, perhaps, but total's still pretty good. 275, about what we're expecting. Just in the right half of the fairway. Right, one more shot. See if we can get a nice middled strike here. We can get one out the neck for you. Yeah, slightly necky, so spin's going to go up a little bit. Carry will come down, total will come down because it's not running, but again, it's a drive I could hit in the real world, so pretty representative. Okay, let's jump back into the TrackMan. Let's compare those numbers side by side and see what we've got. Okay, so firstly, as we can see there, my ability to miss the fairway right is still fully intact, which is great. We can see obviously the different colours there. You know, red, white, blue, orange. You can see they've all kind of done the same thing. So the colours just indicate the 4 different golf balls. By and large, I think there's not one ball there. It doesn't appear to me to be standing out doing the most. No surprise, the 2 shots have hit the straightest, have gone the furthest. That's going to be the way it works because the club face is square. It's probably a pretty centred strike, all that sort of stuff. If we dig down, I guess, into the numbers a little bit. So the bottom one was my ProV1, 246 carry, 276 total. TourSoft 248, 272. Velocity 245, 271. True Feel 242, 269. Well, maybe though a little bit dragged down True Feel by the last one. Yeah, if I take that last one out. So, 245, 245, 245, 246. They're all going to carry the same distance. 276, 273, 272, 275. There's not much in it there. We can see launch angle wise, 12 degrees, 13, 13, 12. Pretty similar. Landing angle, 30s. Height. A little bit lower, incidentally, with the True Feel and the ProV1 there. And it's interesting, actually, that, again, the spin numbers there are pretty similar, aren't they? The height, the launch angle. That True Feel, I think, is a bit of an underrated sort of star of the show, really. It performed really well in the wedge test, and it's performed really similar to my ProV1 in the driver test there, which has been interesting. So, yeah, I mean, I think, for me, there's not one standout ball there. Looking across that grid, we can see there that pretty much they're all going to do the same thing on the left-hand side. So, okay, let's have a little recap and we'll sort of sum up what we've maybe found from today's video. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up the testing of the balls from the non-premium section of the Titleist range, if you want. I think as we did last time, we went through that premium section. We used the ball fitting app to identify of those best-in-class golf balls, what would be the ball that best fits my game. The answer is the ProV1. So today we've tried to use the ProV1 as the baseline. We know that's the ball that Titleist would recommend I play with, and we've compared it to the other golf balls in their range. And Titleist ball fitting ethos, I mentioned this earlier in the video, would be that you work from the green back to the tee box, because they would typically find that the biggest differences in performance will come the closer to the hole you get. Chipping and pitching and wedge shots than it will be 7-irons and drivers. And I think the data we've seen there today would confirm that. I would feel like on that 30 to 40 yard shot, the extra control and the ability to stop the ball near to where I'm pitching it is going to save me more shots, because when we got to the 7-iron and the driver, yeah, I might be able to find a ball maybe with a 7-iron that goes 5 yards longer in carry, but it actually runs out a bit more. So I'm not necessarily sure that's going to give me the stopping ability to get the ball nearer to the hole anyway. When it came to the driver, they pretty much all did the same thing, didn't they? They were pretty much the same launch angle, pretty much the same distance. Obviously, the higher we get up in the bag, the more randomness there is in things like strike and control of the club face that just come from, in this case, me, the human swinging the club, and we've all got that. So I think picking a golf ball that gives us control and best performance in an area where we can have more control anyway. You know, if you said to me, oh, I've got to hit a shot that flies 40 yards, I think I've got a better chance of doing that than hitting exactly a 250-yard carry that runs out to 275. There's going to be more fluctuation in that number, just because the task of hitting a drive is much harder than the task of hitting a 40-yard wedge shot. So, like I said, I hope you found that interesting. I think, if you're interested in exploring the Titleist golf ball range, that's something we can help you with here. We can take you through the premium ball fitting app. We can take you through the same kind of test we've done there to say if there's something you're looking for in your game, more height, more distance, more control, whatever it might be. We can take you through those golf balls and try and help you find a solution for that to help you shoot some lower scores on the golf course. So let us know what you thought of this video. If there's anything you'd like to see in the future, any products tested, any products reviewed, any kind of common questions you might have, let us know. We'll try and get to them. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.